Welcome back, folks, to the Craig Bushon Show on BeFirstInMedia.com. You're going to, I hope, be very intrigued about my next guest here at the 2012 North Shore Republican Club Keep America Free Gala event. It's about to get going right now. You hear a little sound in the background. It's almost like being at the convention, you know, trying to hear all this, trying to do a show while another big show is going on. But sitting with me right now is somebody that you really need to pay attention to, because education is the key to the foundation of knowledge. It is a deep root that has to be put in the ground in this country and fertilized and watered and walked and looked after, because what we teach ourselves and what we teach our children is key. And with me right now is Republican candidate Tom Maynard, running for State Board of Education, District 10. Thank you for coming on the program today.
Great to be here.
Well, it's a very exciting time in politics. There's no doubt about that. You get down to the DNA of education, and education tends to be a pretty difficult subject because more and more people are homeschooling. We're always told we're not spending enough money in education. We need to be taxed more. We need, fewer students per classroom. All these things, it all comes down to money. Right? So what's the state of the union of education? We'll get down to the DNA of Texas, now DNA of, and then down into your district. Where are we in education right now?
I tell you, Craig, that's a great question. And when you go out and you talk to the citizens out there, there are a couple of things that really concern citizens out there. Nearly everywhere you go, they feel like that the kids are really being over-tested. And that we have gotten to a point in public education where we are really teaching to a test, and we're graduating a bunch of kids that really don't know how to do much of anything. And I'll tell you, I sat with a group of industry folks that are very concerned about an aging workforce, and they feel like that their voices have really not been heard because we have really lost some pieces of the workforce development component of public education. And I tell people it's not that schools don't want to teach those things, but we have some challenges in that. Number one, it's not part of the accountability system. We have created some targets in education that are really driven by things like standardized testing, and if it's not on the test, we've reached a point where it really doesn't matter, and that's what really drives local school boards and administrators and things like that. I'll tell you another thing too is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to find folks to teach those subjects in those classes.
So what's the biggest hurdle there? I mean, I have family that have been in education for years. My mother worked in a school district for 18 years out west. Obviously, there's always the pushback that we don't pay our teachers enough money, but yet we're spending more money in education than any time in the last 10, 15 years. We have thrown tons of money in education nationally, for sure, and then as it whittles down into local, but yet we have a lot of people starting to really teach their kids at home because they even see that there's a threat to going to school. There's like all these things are brewing within something that should be pretty basic. Go to school, reading, writing, and arithmetic, if you will, and then go home. Now it's this huge political machine, and how do we fix those problems? And why do we have so many people wanting to homeschool these days versus 20 years ago?
I think that when you talk to homeschoolers, there are people that homeschool students for a variety of different reasons.
Absolutely, sure.
And I don't think that you can necessarily characterize homeschoolers in one monolithic block, because people do it for different reasons.
Well, some of the people that I talk to homeschool don't like the feeling of there's almost like they feel their kids are threatened going to school. The bullying effect. It seems like we're having to become a police force inside education so heavily that it can tend to pull resources in that direction, it seems. And what challenges do you see that if you get elected in this position, how do we take people's mindset and let them know that education is working and it's not something that's a waste of money or a waste of time, and that I believe that there's probably I know there's a considerable amount of people who are homeschooling because they don't believe in the educational system. So that means that we need leaders who can help teach people that they should, or show them why they should believe in our educational system.
Well, and that said, is first of all, I think let's make it very clear that our state constitution sets forth that we have a responsibility for a system of free public schools.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, whose responsibility is it to educate children? Whose choice is that? Well, that is a parental responsibility.
Absolutely agree with that.
That is a parental
Yes.
responsibility, and however a parent chooses to educate their children, we need to support that. And people, I will tell you that sometimes in public schools, a child that's not a perfect round peg to go into that round hole, sometimes the system is pretty tough on them. I raised a dyslexic child.
Me too. Absolutely right.
And I raised a child who was a little bit of a free spirit, and that didn't always fit into that nice little scheme. But I will tell you that these things are important. I mean, it's important for us to have strong public schools, but it's also very important for parents to have that option. If they want to send their child to a charter school, a public school, if they want to homeschool them, we need to be okay with that.
So what are the biggest changes you want to do? What are the biggest what would a Tom Maynard State Board of Education look like? What do you see moving forward that needs to be done that's not been done in the past?
That's a great question, and understand too is that when people think about State Board of Education, that you have to understand kind of what the scope of the responsibility of the state board are. There's a lot of things that are strictly the domain of the legislature. There's been a lot of talk about school choice and all those kinds of things, and none of that is into the purview of the State Board of Education. State Board of Education takes care of curriculum. They take care of a lot of things like with graduation plans. They address charter schools. They manage the permanent school fund, and so the responsibilities of the state board are relatively narrow, but they're very important. And so I think one of the things that's a real
I'll
problem.
pause you for a second. I think I hear. The Pledge of Allegiance is being done.
Yes, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, there we have it. Sorry for interrupting there, but I heard in the background in the other room that we're
Yes.
doing the pledge, and I wanted to make sure that we stopped for that. I don't know if it was picked up on the microphone, but we could hear it here. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think too is that the thing that might be missing, that has been kind of missing in a lot of this discussion, and let me circle back to that whole workforce development piece, and because I think that that's going to be a priority. The Republican Party of Texas put that in their platform this year as far as supporting career and technical education. And I will tell you that as a priority.
I think we have another thing going on right now.
We do have something going on.
That's right. The national anthem.
The national anthem.
Hold on 1 second here. Apologize for the pause.
No.
Well, I'll tell you, you couldn't have staged that any better to be interviewed and have all those things going on at one time. I mean, that is amazing. And but we always like to take the time to, all the freedoms that we do have to even do our broadcasting. It's because of the Pledge of Allegiance. It's because of our national anthem. So I thank you so much, and for you folks out there taking the time. But here we are. The fact is that education is a key thing, I believe, for this country, because what we learn really defines us.
Absolutely.
Who we are.
Absolutely.
And curriculum is big. And as Texas curriculum goes, so goes a lot of the United States.
Right.
Okay, so we have a big responsibility.
Got a big responsibility there. And I think that and let me go back and revisit this whole piece on workforce development. and Rick Santorum brought this up, and kind of mentioned this during the campaign is that, well, what percentage of students go to college? What would you think? Well, about 30%. About 30% of our students go to college, and of those 30%, about half of them actually finish. But really, the whole system that we've got in high school is geared toward with the assumption that everybody is going to college, and we're graduating a lot of students out there that really don't have any real skills to go into the workforce and succeed. I think we're going to have to address that.
I completely agree that we need to start not just teaching the business of what someone's going to go into, but also how they can address being in the business. How to be entrepreneurs, too, is not being taught enough. I meet so many people who come out of upper education that don't even know how to apply what they know. They know what they know, but they don't know how to apply it, and that's an amazing thing.
Right.
We need to do better at that. This country is a big business, and we need to teach people while they're in school, even at the high school level, in my opinion, what it is to be an entrepreneur, what capitalism is, how capitalism works,
right.
The laws of capitalism, because all of the things we're talking about fall under the laws of capitalism, even education.
Absolutely. And so, the question is, well, what are the obstacles to making all that happen?
Right.
And one of the things, and I'll give you an example, when I was teaching, and I was an agricultural science teacher, and I taught things like welding and wiring, electrical wiring, and horticulture and animal science and all those kinds of things. There were a couple of gentlemen that taught. There was a gentleman who taught building trades, and there was one who taught metal trades in our school. And when they retired, there was no one there to take their place. And a lot of what we face in public schools is not that schools don't want to teach these things. There's no one to teach them. And one of the things that presents a little bit of an obstacle are the certification, the teacher certification requirements, and particularly when you get out into rural schools. And so when we say that to teach our health occupations curriculum in career and technical education, you got to have an RN. Well, if about 17% of our students live out in rural areas, and what are the odds of them finding an RN that's going to come to the high school and teach kids? You can make a lot more money being an RN.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so, does it really take an RN to teach that particular curriculum? I would submit to you that probably if I'm a paramedic, I could probably teach it. My wife and I are both EMTs. I'm familiar with that curriculum. We have to look at those things. Do the teacher certification requirements create some kind of barrier to schools delivering that curriculum? And I think in some instances that there are. What would keep schools from engaging local experts?
Well, I'll pause you there and let you know that I was part of some curriculum for Austin Energy and Austin Community College on the energy side through a company I had called Home Energy Solutions.
Right.
And as we were building this curriculum, I looked at them and I said, well, who are you going to get to teach these courses?
Right.
Well, we'll have to have someone who has a degree. Well, I said, there's no degree in green. There's no degree in energy technology.
Right.
There's no degree that doesn't fit the mold. You're talking about tradesmen. You're talking about a person who puts in a solar thermal system as a plumber, and that plumber didn't go to traditional school.
Right.
And you can't have that person teach the class. They can only come in as a special speech giver at some particular point. Made no sense to me whatsoever. Why on earth would I have a coursework that would have the smartest person in the classroom teaching it? And it's because the rules that they were put in place.
And if a local school district takes a non-certified person and puts them in that role, they get penalized on their funding.
It's insanity. So the old saying of cream rises to the top, it's not even allowed to happen.
Right.
Education is a big deal to me because the lack of it defines the world we live in right now. We are $16 trillion in debt because people don't understand economics. We're highly unemployed with a lot of smart people who aren't entrepreneurs because they don't know how to be one.
Right.
We have banks that won't lend anymore because we have a lot of people going to college. They actually shouldn't have went to college, who should have been entrepreneurs too. Right. They should have went into that world, and there was a vacuum that happened there. So there's education's a huge thing we have to deal with in this country. And we got about a minute left here because I know we have to get out to the festivities. I hear it going on, and then I'll be doing some more interviews later, folks, with those candidates who want to. Top 2 things that people need to pay attention to and why they need to vote for you this election season.
Well, I think it comes down to experience. I'm the only one in this race who's actually ever been a classroom teacher. and who's ever actually served on a local school board and dealt with those issues. And in my current role, I deal in career and technical education. I work with about between 17 and 1,800 ag teachers across the state of Texas. I work with about 94 to 95,000 kids as it is. And so day in and day out, we do that. I work with the system, but I'm not part of the system. And so what it does do, it enables me to step back and understand what's going on without having actually working for the system.
And you're not afraid to push on the system.
No, not at all.
Fix the things that are broke.
And I've been doing that for my whole career.
Well, there you have it. Tom Maynard, Republican candidate for the State Board of Education, District 10. You're going to be able to find this on BeFirstInMedia.com. We'll have links up all over the place. It'll be uploaded in moments from now. And I thank you so much, Tom, for coming on today. And I'll see you out there. I know it's time to eat and listen to some speakers. This is Craig Bushon. Check back for some more updates from the 2012 North Shore Republican Club Keep America Free Gala event in Lago, Vista, Texas.